You're listening to Discutafel, the podcast on eco-friendly gardening and permaculture. Hello, welcome to episode 57 of Discutafel, the first Dutch podcast on eco-friendly gardening and permaculture. Today is October 8, 2019. My name is Yvonne Smit and I am your host. I apologize for having this episode online a few days late. Unfortunately, a sour throat prevented me from speaking to you on the scheduled day and time. Listen today to another episode in English, and in today's show we concentrate on flower bulbs. Discu knowledge. This time I'd like to bring you some thoughts and tips on flower bulbs and sustainability. It's October now, the typical time of the year when consumers rush to the garden centers or web shops to buy their bulbs. Flower bulbs are the ultimate Dutch export product, as you might know. We at Discutafel live in the southern part of the Netherlands, and that's not the typical region where you might encounter and enjoy the colorful bulb fields in springtime on your way to work or school. And despite their beauty, I've hardly used flower bulbs in my own garden, apart from the odd tulip or so. Perhaps that has something to do with my youth, the place where I grew up. Lots of big trees and estates just around the corner, and a river nearby with farmlands and cows and poplars. They got my attention as a child, and not the neighbor's garden. Anyway, perhaps you are a bulb fan and would like to pay some attention to these plants. But you know now that the story is not really based on personal experience, neither on professional knowledge. Let's start the story with some tourist information on bulbs. You may have heard of the Keukenhof in the Dutch town of Lisse. Keukenhof is the international showcase for the Dutch floricultural sector, with emphasis on flower bulbs. In just 8 weeks' time, each spring, Keukenhof shows what the Dutch floricultural sector has to offer. I've visited the park once or twice, and I might go next year or so. It's very impressive to see those millions of spring flowering bulbs and to meet flower growers who present an enormous variety of cut flowers and pot plants. If I'm right, the well-known BBC gardener Monty Dunn took a brief visit to the park in April 2019 and called it lovely. And the Keukenhof is lovely. But questions arose when preparing for this Discutafel podcast episode on eco-friendly bulbs, because on the park's website I couldn't find anything about sustainability. Nothing about the way the plants were grown. I happen to know there are organic bulb growers in the country. Not many of them, but they are here, and I think we should support these pioneers. I couldn't find any information on the Keukenhof website either about the way the management deals with, for instance, public transport of those many visitors, how they handle waste, if they offer healthy food and drinks, and so on. I do understand Aachen and Cologne haven't been built in just one day, as the saying goes here. It takes time to make the transition to an eco-friendly sector. But somehow I expected this big Dutch showcase for flowers to at least mention something on the issue on the website. If any one of you knows more, please contact me at Discutafel. I'd be happy to adjust the information because we do want to give you an honest picture. Anyway, Keukenhof is really something special. In case you're interested, the park will be open again from March 21st until May 10th, 2020. Let's talk about sustainably, oh, that's a difficult word, sustainably grown bulbs now. The question rises, what is sustainably grown? The first thought which comes to my mind is, well, you wish to buy bulbs which are free of pesticides. Conventionally produced flower bulbs are one of the most polluted crops in horticulture. They are forced with synthetic fertilizers and they are sprayed with a cocktail of pesticides. The worst offender being neonicotine, which is suspected to be one of the major reasons for those loss of billions of bees. The stuff is absorbed by the growing plant and can be found in the flowers, in the nectar and the pollen. Some breeders can guarantee you that they themselves have never used those substances, but it is not realistic to think your precious flower bulbs will be totally free of pesticide residues, because those residues can still be somewhere in the chain or even in your own garden, shed or soil. Climate change, that's another subject to talk about here. It increases the risk for bulb growers. They are increasingly faced with extreme weather, flood, drought, salinity. What does climate change mean for us, consumers, when we make our plant choice? We don't want to waste any plant, buying a new one every year because they die, or having to water them time after time again. I wonder which bulbs are climate proof. I don't know. Do we know enough about climate change to make wise choices? The next question is, should your bulbs be organic? Well, as far as Discutafel is concerned, the answer is yes. Organically grown bulbs grow up in a healthy soil, without added chemicals, and with respect for man and animals and environment. And for the plant, of course. This also means being careful with resources and air miles, using green manures and other smart soil management systems. Organically grown bulbs usually perform well in providing pollen and nectar, and as we know, a lot of insects need these to survive or feed their larvae. But they're also good for gardeners and flower lovers, of course. They last longer, they produce stronger flowers and healthier bulbs, which will last for several seasons. See to it that your shops got their organic bulbs from reliable organic growers, who do everything possible to grow their bulbs as organically and sustainably as possible. A certificate can help. Talking about insects, not all pretty flowers are insect-friendly. Some are just grown for their own good looks or their resistance against pests and diseases, which is okay as long as the information is clear on this. Ask your bulb grower if their varieties deliver a real contribution to the welfare of insects. Apart from my observations on the Keukenhof website, how sustainable is the Dutch bulb grower sector anyway? Well, with the launch of a new program called Vital Growing 2030 recently, the Dutch flower bulb sector presented a vision about the move to a more robust system, a system with nature as a partner. They want to focus on sustainability, on technological developments and the value of biodiversity. That all sounds very nice. They work together, those partners, to achieve this goal. But looking at their website, I see the vision, and it all seems to be in a paper stadium at this moment. And as the title of the program suggests, it could at least be 2030 2030 or later before the necessary changes have taken place in the bulb fields, let alone in your garden. As I mentioned before, some individual Dutch bulb growers are active on another level. They are changing their businesses already, perhaps because their customers ask for it. They show a sense of responsibility to contribute to the achievement of the climate goals in Europe. We think it's important to help growers who are steadily switching from conventional to sustainable growing. These pioneers in the sector are helping consumers, municipalities and other buyers to make a sustainable choice. Now, finally, some practical advice about planting your bulbs. Location is key. A happy bulb flowers yearly and spreads easily across the garden, like in nature really. Each species needs its own amount of sunlight, dampness and drainage. Of course, you could read the package. You can also look across the fence and watch which bulbs perform well in your neighbor's garden and where and when. Don't go for spring bulbs only. Why should you? The flowering of spring bulbs can be succeeded by that of summer bulbs and autumn bulbs. This means a long pollen and nectar season and enjoyment for you and your guests. Take also into account the way you are using that part of the garden. Perhaps it's not a very good idea to plant bulbs in the children's play area, for instance. The other day, in one of those famous British garden programs, I saw the presenter loosely throwing handsful of different bulbs on the soil, planting them exactly on the spot where they landed, in order to make, let's say, a naturalistic impression. I think that works, at least for men. I don't know how the plants themselves think about it, but I do think it's wise not to let them touch each other when you're planting them out. When you want the plant bulbs to spread, plant density should be low. Varying in kinds of bulbs in the same part of the garden has another advantage. Variation is something I recognize from permaculture. It's imitating nature again. Some animals like to eat tulips and some crocuses, like voles. You can distract them by interplanting with bulbs or other plants which they don't eat, like daffodil or ornamental onion. This is an example of combination planting. Well, that was it. That was what we wanted to share with you on sustainable flower bulbs. Again, Discutafel is no specialist on the subject. Your suggestions are very welcome indeed. Go to discutafel.nl for contact details or share your thoughts on social media. Discu finish. That was it. Thank you for sharing your valuable time again with us at Discutafel, and also for your nice retweets and conversations on Twitter and on Facebook. We really appreciate those. As always, go to discutafel.nl for the show note. You might notice our website got another look. We've been busy cleaning up wet borders and clearing web paths, and we planted a web branch and did some pruning, so to speak. If we happened to overlook a web corner, would you help us? Please report an error still occurring. If you do so in October 2019, you might win some veg seeds which you can sow this winter. Thanks in advance for your help. I expect the next English episode to be online as from October 31st, 2019, as long as I have a healthy voice, that is. In the meantime, let's go outside, and until next time.